So the fourth and final speaker is Professor Perween Hasan. She is Vice Chancellor of Central Women's University at Dhaka in Bangladesh. And today, ma'am will be speaking on remembering the remembered Birangona. Ma'am, are you here? Yes.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Ma'am, I hand it over to you now. Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. I think I'll start my paper. I'll read some of it, and there'll be a couple of videos, short videos, very short videos, and a few slides. So, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, you're clear.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, good. Remembering the remembered Birangona. Some of the stories here have been accessed through Nari Pokho, a women's organization in Bangladesh, one of whose present projects is Ekatturer Je Narider Bhulechi, or the Forgotten Women of 1971, in which I am involved. I'm indebted to Nari Pokho for these stories. A story is a retelling of a remembrance, and we will share stories of a few of our Birangona sisters to understand how they have been remembered or remembered with a hyphen. A term, remembered is a term I borrowed from Nayonika Mukherjee, who wrote a book on sexual violence during the 1971 War of Independence in Bangladesh, which is called The Spectral Wound, and was published by Duke University Press in 2015. Birangona is a Bangla word which literally means a heroic woman or war heroine. A classic example would be Lakshmi Bai, the Rani of Jhansi. But in Bangladesh, this word has a specific connotation. It is used for women who were raped by the Pakistan Army during the War of Independence. Mr. A.H.M. Kamruzzaman, Home Minister of the Provisional Government of Bangladesh in India, first used Birangona in this sense immediately after his return home on December 22, 1971. Overwhelmed by the large number of raped women, he announced that all young girls and women who have been subjected to inhuman torture by the occupying Pakistani army in the last 9 months would be accorded full respect as Birangonas of the Bangladesh Liberation War. Full respect, I quote, cannot be demanded automatically just by a proclamation. It has not happened in 50 years. Notice also that, again, quote, inhuman torture is used instead of rape, a crime for which there is a word in Bangla, bharshon. Culturally, there seems to be an aversion to the use of the term rape, using euphemism instead. But ever since then, Birangona has been used to name women raped during the war, so it has lost its original meaning. Politicians tirelessly talk about how our freedom was won at the cost of the man, ijjot, shambram, all more or less meaning honor, of 2 lakhs ma and bon, mothers and sisters. This aversion, almost fear of mentioning rape, and clothing it in terms of man, ijjot or shambramhani, loss of honor, is all pervasive. One used even by the Birangonas themselves. And it serves to palliate the horror of the heinous crime. Man, ijjot or shambramhani refers to an imagined post-traumatic situation of the victim to shift the responsibility on her while the rapist remains invisible. She is the one who has lost what is perceived to be a woman's most precious possession, her man, ijjot, and shambram. When Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman returned to Bangladesh...
Ma'am, very sorry to interrupt, but your video is off. Could you please put it on?
Sorry.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. When Bangabandhu... Can you hear me all right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. When Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman returned to Bangladesh on January 10, 1972, he repeatedly mentioned Birangona in his speeches and called them mother. You are Birangona. You are my mother, Ma. Ma, mother, is a term of endearment used to address a daughter or someone with whom one has a mother or daughter-like relationship. Now I will share screen with you. This well-known, if controversial, photograph of a Birangona taken by Naibuddin Ahmad is titled "A Shamed Woman" and was published in Banglar Bani in 1972. She has covered her face with her hair and has her fists clenched to her forehead. She's a traumatized woman and craves anonymity because of her abject shame and despair. There is public awareness of the large number of Birangonas, but no desire to know where they are or what happened to them. Over time, the vast majority just disappeared into the crowd, coping with the situation as best as they could. In the 80s and 90s, pictures depicting Birangonas being disrobed by the Pakistani soldiers were often seen in rickshaw paintings, and the titillating aspect cannot be ignored. Next. Okay. You can see here, this is a rickshaw painting it was used to ornament the backs of rickshaws, and the villages are burning, the homes, and the Pakistani soldiers have killed some of the men and disrobing the women. And anything that goes on rickshaw painting shows that, it's a popular, everybody knows about it. In 2011, Nari Pakko came to know about a group of Birangona sisters in Sirajganj who were in great need of monetary and medical help. We decided to visit them in a group. We knew of them through a friend who was trying to help out by collecting contributions from friends and family. To say that the meeting was emotionally charged is to say nothing at all. 21 sickly, poor old women were waiting for us in a room. Their stories of capture, rape, and abandonment were horrendous. Their stories were an integral part of the history of our nation's birth, and yet we had ignored them so long. There was no absolvement. Why did we wait so long? All but one of them, we will come to her later, had been abandoned by their families. Some had grown children who left when they heard that their mother was a Birangona. One woman said that her son came to see her every Eid and give her some money, but she didn't know where he lived. And she said, how can he give? He can hardly support himself. Most of them worked as part-time domestic help and lived outside Sirajganj town, in what at best could be called a shack, hardly a house. They remembered how sympathetic Bangabandhu had been when he had visited them in 1972, but no one seemed to care now. They did not want to be called Birangonas any longer because it had become a dirty word, an abusive term that was a synonym for raped with all the traditional connotations of victim blaming. Indeed, it had been used in the parliament to slander the leader of the opposition, referring to her captivity in the army cantonment in 1971. They preferred Mukti Joddha or Nari Mukti Joddha because freedom fighters were entitled to benefits such as monthly allowance, land, jobs, educational benefits for children and grandchildren. Financial and medical help was what they needed most. And now, Nari Pakko also petitioned the government in 2013 to restart the rehabilitation program of monthly financial aid to the Birangonas, which had stopped in 1975. For the last 11 years, we have tried to draw more women into our net. So far, we have given them small monthly stipends, repaired some homes, tried to raise awareness about their condition, and lobby for compensation and redress. Ganashastha Kendra, a health NGO rooted in the War of Liberation, came forth to help and offered free services to all the Birangonas. How were the Birangonas remembered, meaning hyphenated remembered? Remembering refers to how this very large number of young raped women, the official number is 200,000, that is 2 lakhs, but this is not exact. Even so, it was a very, very large number who were ostracized or demembered from their families and societies. How could they be remembered again and absorbed into the new nation through rehabilitation programs sponsored by the state? The programs petered out in the late 70s with no follow-up. Through a Gazette declaration in 2016, the government defined who would be considered a freedom fighter. Along with journalists, performers, and sports persons, I quote here, the women who were violated and tortured by the then Pakistani occupation forces, that is Birangonas, were also included. This is the certificate. Next one. Ari. This is the certificate that was issued by the Mukti Joddha Mantrana, right? And
ma'am, where is the certificate?
If the certificate is here, you don't
No, we cannot see anything like that. Now it's there. Now it's there.
Okay. Okay. And if you see can you read the last line? সরকার মহান স্বাধীনতা যুদ্ধে তার বীরত্বপূর্ণ অবদান কৃতজ্ঞতার সাথে স্বীকার করছে. And the line before that identifies the person as একজন বীর মুক্তিযোদ্ধা. And this is what will be given now to all the Muktijoddhas and Birangonas and the journalists and everybody else who's been included in the group. The published Gazette list, that the list that the heading that's there on the list says, Prokrito Muktijoddhader bracket Birangona Talika list. That is a list of genuine freedom fighters within brackets Birangona. Now, the meaning is very dubious. I think what is meant is probably what they probably meant was genuine Birangona, not genuine Muktijoddha. By 2016, 5 of the Birangonas in our group had expired, but the rest have been enlisted and hopefully are now somewhat remembered. The rehabilitation program of 1972 prioritized women who had become pregnant as a result of war rape. Although there are no exact figures, the range is wide and indicates the large scale of the problem. The range is between 25,000 to 1,95,000 pregnancies and 3,000 babies born. All the records were destroyed in 1975. The reasons given were, 1, to prevent the disclosure of the identity of the raped women. 2, they were given to the Bangla Academy for the writing of a comprehensive history of the war, which they lost later on. The Bangla Academy lost the papers. 3, it was the work of subsequent pro-Pakistani governments who wanted to hide the facts. A network of centers offered abortion or, I quote, emergency procedures. And again, another quote, international adoption of babies who were born because their mothers were at a stage when their pregnancies could not be terminated. Nilima Ibrahim, a professor in the Bengali department of Dhaka University and a member of the National Board for the Rehabilitation of Women in 1972, published her Ami Birangona Bolchi in 1994, which are stories of Birangonas she had first met in the center, then came face to face several years later. These stories are remembrances of the different trajectories that their lives had taken in order to remember. The author requested the readers not to try to find the Birangonas because, I quote, "Once we had ostracized them, why do we want to inflict pain on them again?" And here are some of the stories in brief. Tara Banerjee Nielsen lives in Denmark with her journalist husband. Tara was 18 in 1971 and lived in Rajshahi. Her father was a doctor. Hearing of the army action in Dhaka on 25th March, they fled to the village. The local chairman picked her up and delivered her to the Pakistani army. From there till December 16, there was no respite. She would sometimes be visited by 6 or 7 men on a single day. The captive girls were given only petticoat and blouse to wear, as there had been attempted suicide with saris and dupattas. But Tara never craved for death. She prayed to live. She remembered how the 15-year-old pregnant Moina had bled to death, and although the girls had continuously banged on the doors, nobody came to take her, give her any help. She was taken out only after she died. Rescued by the Mukti Bahini and Indian Army after Victory Day, she was taken to hospital for an abortion. Tara. People came just to look at the Birangonas, a title she was very proud of. Many of the girls did not want abortions. She remembered how a very young Morjina screamed every time she saw Dr. Nilima because she feared that her son would be snatched away from her and sent abroad for adoption. Morjina's husband had been compensated for his wife's pregnancy. Dr. Nilima acknowledged that sending Morjina's son to Sweden was the most difficult thing she had ever done. Very disturbed, she had asked Bangabandhu of what could be done, but he was very adamant. I quote, "Everyone whose fathers are unknown, send them away. There, meaning in some other country, they will grow up as human beings." He sensed that the cultural stigma attached to rape and, I quote, illegitimacy would hold these children back in Bangladesh. Then he added, "I do not want to keep polluted blood in this country." Tara remembers with pride her meeting with Bangabandhu when he had said, "You have sacrificed the most valuable thing that you have for freedom. You are the best of Birangonas. Tomra shreshto Birangona." What is this most valuable thing of a woman in the collective imagination of the Bengali that even the father of the nation could not speak of? Is it her shotitto, naritto, man, ijjot, shambram? Tara's brother and father came to see her twice in the center, but never asked her to go home. They were repairing the house and making extensions with the money they had received as compensation for Tara's condition. She decided not to go home. The Polish doctor who had performed her abortion trained her as a nurse and arranged for her to go to Poland. On a visit to Copenhagen, she met Nielsen, a journalist who had visited Bangladesh in 1971 and married him in 1975. Neil and his family's affection helped her to put her past behind and settle happily. In 1982, Tara accompanied Neil to Delhi for a conference and also visited Rajshahi. She was not an unfortunate Birangona any longer, but a proud Mrs. Nielsen. Her sister, who had refused to talk to her before, was now overjoyed to see her Shaheb, white husband. Her father begged her forgiveness. The house was unrecognizable. There were signs of prosperity everywhere. Tara saw how her family had taken the price for her suffering. In her own words, naritto. I couldn't translate this. Would it be womanhood? But I'm not happy with that. Shotitto or povitrota, that is chastity and purity, all of which she had lost when she was raped. Strange, she thought. She had not heard of any Birangonas on this visit. And she cursed the Bengali social order for this. She says herself, "I just wanted respect and a shelter in my own country, but I don't have any real identity here. Tara Banerjee is despicable, dead. It was Tara Nielsen who got honor and respect in Bangladesh. Our second Birangona is Meher Jan. She was born in Kapashia, an outskirt of Dhaka. Her father was a tailor, and she studied in class 8 in 1971. She repeats Tara's sentiment. For my country, I have given up my most prized possession, my naritto. In May, the army came and dragged her into a jeep. She was transferred from place to place and usually stayed in groups. She had become a skeleton, a ghost, but that brought her no respite. She remembers a student of Mymensingh College who had failed in a suicide attempt and became very depressed. She was dressed in a sari and taken to see a doctor, but had never returned. They had just killed her. Meher Jan used to pray a lot, and she believes that God must have heard her or she would not have been alive. Towards the end of the war, in her last camp, she met a very kind Pathan Havildar, Laik Khan, who was over 60 years of age. When victory was imminent, Laik Khan told Meher that soon her country would be free, but the Muktis would come and kill him. Meher knew that no one would come to take her home and asked Laik to marry her, knowing that he already had a wife and family in his village in Pakistan. They were married by the camp Molvi. After victory, the Indians and Mukti Bahini came and distributed saris and freed the prisoners. An Indian soldier offered to take Meher home, but she replied, I have no home. This is my husband. Wherever you take him, I will go. The soldier had laughed. There were 30 others who had opted to go to Pakistan as prisoners of war. Among them, 2 highly educated women, one from Rajshahi University and the other from Mymensingh College. Fathers and husbands came, gave the women saris, but told them that they could not take them back, although they wanted to, because they had a shomaj, that is, society, community, whatever you call it. Meher and her group were even more determined to go with the prisoners of war, and Meher turned her father away. 3 professors, including Dr. Nilima Ibrahim, came from Dhaka University to persuade them to stay. What will you get in Pakistan? They will sell you to a brothel. Meher replied, I could be a prostitute or a sweeper, but over there, no one will recognize me. It was painful to hear the victory celebrations because they had forfeited their rights to participate in that. In Pakistan, Laik and Meher settled in Karachi and worked for a retired army officer who had a Bengali wife, Salma. They had a son, that is Laik and Meher, who Meher named Taj Khan after Tajuddin Ahmed, because our first prime minister in the Mujibnagar government, who also came from the same village, Kapashia. He later became, the son, Taj, later became an officer in the engineering corps of the Pakistani army. With Salma's help, Meher studied, took her BA degree, and had an independent livelihood. Her son constantly reminded her of 1971. She wondered if he would be a wild animal like the ones she had known. Salma was entertaining a women's delegation from Bangladesh one day, and Meher was surprised to see that the lady introduced to her as Salma's former teacher was the same person who had held her hands on the eve of her departure and had appealed to her, don't go, stay with me. She too recognized Meher. On hearing her story, she said, Meher, I'm so relieved that I did not keep you in Dhaka to be buried, because we have not been able to establish any of the war-affected women openly and honorably. I'm so happy to see you. 4 months later, there was an opportunity to join a delegation from Pakistan to go to Bangladesh. When the plane landed in Dhaka, she remembered how she had left Bangladesh in a truck. Now she was being received with Rajinigandha flowers and would stay in Sheraton Hotel. She became painfully aware of her identity that was inscribed in her passport. Wife of Laik Khan, nationality Pakistani. She always thanked God for all that he had given her. But what about all that she had lost? Her brother came to take her home in a jeep wearing a safari suit and sunglasses, a far cry from the lungi and shirt that he used to wear. Their modest home was replaced by a two-storied house. While she was being entertained inside, she noticed that both the gate and the front door of the house were locked. Meher understood that her arrival had been kept a secret, and she promised to never come back again. She says, "Forgive me, my motherland. I have lost you because I opted for life." She was at peace when she returned to Pakistan. In her own words, "I did not get a national flag nor a Sonar Bangla, but I have touched Bangladesh as a victorious Birangona. That is my pride, my biggest achievement." The third story is about Reena. Reena was one of the two highly educated women mentioned by Meher. Both her parents, her father was a very high government official, were killed by the Pakistan army when they came in search of her brother, a captain in the Pakistani army who had joined the Mukti Bahini. She was taken prisoner. After independence, when an Indian soldier pulled her out of a bunker, half naked and half dead, she saw only hate and disgust in the eyes of those who had gathered around. She was glad that the Indian did not understand the filthy swears that they were spitting out. How could they hate her so much? She had thought that when the Mukti Bahini found her, they would be honored like mothers and sisters, because they were not here on their own will. Reena also remembers the visit of the three professors. She was very angry at them because they were safe while the Birangonas had been left unprotected. She wept while crossing the border. She says that the pain of leaving Bangladesh behind and entering India was sharper than the physical hurt of the rapes. Through Dr. Nilima, her brother traced her back to the prisoner of war camp in Kolkata and brought her home to all that was left of a loving family, her two brothers and an old retainer. Although her fiancé was in the US during the war, studying for a PhD, couldn't confront the truth. She found Nasir, a freedom fighter and a doctor in the Bangladesh army. She had told him, "Nasir, I'm a Birangona and I'm proud, not ashamed." He replied, "What shame? We couldn't protect you. For that, on everybody's behalf, I beg your forgiveness." She is happily married with a family of her own, but longs for a day when a young person will come and say, "We salute you, Birangona. You are a brave freedom fighter, a Bir Mukti Jodha." Tara, Meher and Reena have all been remembered. The first two in foreign countries, Meher in the very country which had been the declared enemy. To register the different trajectories of remembering, we will now return to Raju Bala, the sole Birangona in the Sirajganj group. Raju Bala, the sole Birangona in the Sirajganj group who had her husband's support. Can you see this picture? Can you see the slide? Excuse me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Raju Bala, her husband was tied to a tree while she was gang raped and the children killed. One was just a baby. Raju Bala and her husband were Kirtaniyas, traditional roving Kirtan singers who traveled from temple to temple and sang about the love of Radha and Krishna. Even when her in-laws drove her out of the family home, Raju's husband remained by her side, took care of her injuries, and resumed their performances and travels. Their needs were small, she said, and they somehow managed to feed and clothe themselves and have a roof over their heads. But there was more trauma to come. One night, as they were returning from a temple engagement, a group of machete-wielding men pounced on her husband and slaughtered him. This was during the retaliatory communal killings that came in the wake of the demolition of the Babri Masjid in Ayodhya and the ensuing communal riots in India in 1992. The grit and strength of this delicately built woman was amazing. She was still single now, when we met her in 2011. She passed away 2 years ago, perhaps the only Birangona whose dismemberment was not so radical because of the support she had got. Next. This is Firdausi Priyadarshini, who was 23 years old in 1971, already divorced with 3 children. She came from a well-known family. Her maternal grandfather had been Speaker of the Provincial Assembly in 1954. Most of her childhood was spent in his house, as her own parents were constantly separating and reconciling. A very early marriage at 17, followed by pregnancies, prevented her from pursuing further education. In 1971, she was working in a jute mill near Khulna as a receptionist to support her own family as well as young siblings. She was practically imprisoned in her quarters, where officers would come and demand service or send a car to drive her to a destination. When the war ended, she had to confront accusations of being a Pakistani collaborator because she had been seen in the company of army officers. Ahsanullah, whom she calls Beer Bhai, a freedom fighter with a secure white-collar job and high social standing, stood by her at this difficult time and married her. She was the first woman to publicly announce herself as a Birangona. Significantly, she established herself as a sculptor, using driftwood, dried twigs, and thrown-away items, transforming them into beautiful objects. She was awarded the highest civilian honor of Bangladesh, Shadinata Padak. Her countless friends spanned all walks of life. But in spite of the support she got from her husband, at a very crucial bend of her life, she reached the heights through her own efforts. In her autobiography, published in 2015, probably she's the only Birangona I know who has written an autobiography, she writes, "Today, at this beautiful moment of my life, my world is full of love, and I have enjoyed much honor and respect." Next, let me see. We will now see a video.
স্বাভাবিক জীবনে আসতে আমার খুব কষ্ট হয়েছে, কারণ আমার হাজবেন্ড, আমি তখন সেকেন্ড ম্যারেজ করি, খুবই ভালো মানুষ, উনি যেন আমাকে নিয়ে কোথাও যেতে পারছে, সোশ্যাল আমি সোজা করেই ভাবতে পারতাম না। একা একা নিজের কাছে জিজ্ঞেস করলাম যে আমার কোনো ভুল আছে। তা আমি ভাবলাম যে সমাজ আমার জন্য না, আমাকে কথা দিয়েছে। আমি একবার মনে মনে যেন কোনো সিদ্ধান্ত নিতে পারি না। আমার হাজবেন্ড বিয়ার ভাই অনেকখানি সাপোর্ট দিয়েছেন। অনেকে বলে বিয়ার ভাই না হলে আমার কি হতো, আমার যা হয়েছিল তাই হতো, আমাকে তো উনি রক্ষা করতে পারেনি, তাই না? তাই উনি আমার বন্ধু রূপে আমার কাছে এসেছেন, কিন্তু হাজবেন্ড হিসেবে আমাকে গ্রহণ করে উনি গ্রহণ করেন ভাইয়া, এবং আমার শ্বশুর বাড়িতে অত্যন্ত পরিমাণ দুর্ব্যবহার আমাকে সহ্য করতে পেরেছেন।
These are the sculptures that she had done.
Ma'am, we cannot see. We could just see her picture. Like, were you showing anything else on some moving figures?
Yes, I showed the video.
No, ma'am. We only saw her picture in Desh TV. That's all. Sculptures also we couldn't see.
Okay, just a minute. Now can you hear?
Yes. Now we can hear you. But it isn't loud enough for everyone. I
I to sound ta badiye den.
স্বাভাবিক জীবনে আসতে আমার খুব কষ্ট হয়েছে, কারণ আমার হাজবেন্ড, আমি তখন সেকেন্ড ম্যারেজ করি, খুবই ভালো মানুষ, উনি যেন আমাকে নিয়ে কোথাও যেতে পারছেন, সোশ্যাল উনি আমি সোজা করেই লাগাতে পারতাম না। একা একা নিজের কাছে জিজ্ঞেস করলাম যে আমার কি কোনো ভুল আছে? তা আমি ভাবলাম যে সমাজ আমার জন্য না, আমাকে কথা শুনতেই হচ্ছে। আমি একবার মনে মনে যেন কোনো নিষিদ্ধ করে নিতে দিই না। আমার হাজবেন্ড বিয়ার ভাই অনেকখানি সাপোর্ট দিয়েছেন। অনেকে বলে বিয়ার ভাই না হলে আমার কি হতো, আমার যা হয়েছিল তাই হতো, আমাকে তো উনি রক্ষা করতে পারেন, তাই না? তাই জন্য উনি আমার বন্ধু রূপে আমার পাশে এসেছেন, কিন্তু হাজবেন্ড হিসেবে আমাকে গ্রহণ করে উনি গ্রহণ করেন তাই। এবং আমার শ্বশুর বাড়িতে প্রচন্ড পরিমাণ দুর্ব্যবহার আমাকে সহ্য করতে পেরেছে।
Next. No. Next. Just to it's next to them.
এইটাই আমার ঘর। মধ্যে জীবন
এটা না, এটার পরে আছে তো
আমাদের জীবনে আসতে আমার খুব কষ্ট হয়েছে।
আচ্ছা থাক তাহলে।
আমার হাজবেন্ড, আমি যখন সেকেন্ড ম্যারেজ
বন্ধ করে দেন।
খুবই
এটা না। Her funeral in 2018 was with full state honor. Now that the government has started to enlist Birangonas, the process is mired by undue bureaucracy and corruption. In the meantime, more Birangonas are dying, in many cases for lack of nourishment. The local Muktijuddho commander has to certify that she is a genuine Birangona. Then her age and other information has to tally with her NID card, her national identity card. And there are numerous other steps which demand a savviness that most of the Birangonas lack. The Birangonas Nari Pokho is working with now have family support, however inadequate. Joygun Nahar from Molibi Bazar, Sylhet, has managed to be on her own, but needs specialized medical help. Her enlistment is being delayed because of a very unique reason. She has a daughter from Lal Khan, a Pakistani major who had raped her. She was held captive for 9 months, but managed to escape and go to her uncle's house in Fenjuganj, where it was discovered that she was 5 months pregnant, too late to have an abortion. In order to give the child legitimacy, her parents prepared papers that stated that she was married to Lal Khan. Now she's in a bind, because if she was married, that would disqualify her as a Birangona. No, we will now watch a video of.
এইটাই আমার ঘর, কোন মধ্যে জীবন যাপন করতেছি। আমি ছোট ছোট একটু ফুলা হয় না আসে, ওরা একটু তার ভিউ করাই আনলে কোনো মধ্যে জানবেন কারণে উঠে তো খাইতে পারি না। এই ঘরটাকে আমার ধরিয়ে নিছে রেজাকার সাইকেল পাঞ্জাবি লেগে আইছে। আমার বাপের বাইরে মারে সব তারা ফিটাইয়া এক ক্যারেট লাশ করিয়া আমাদের তারা মুখো লইয়া গেছি। তখন তারা আমাকে নিয়ে অনেক কিছু মজা করতো, হতো। আমার তো চোখের পানি সব করতেই আছে।
জয়গুনকে একশোনারা ধরিয়ে আনছে লাল খান, তারপরে নির্যাতন করছে। ওই পাঞ্জাবি মেয়েও আছে
এইগুলো আমি আগে খুলিয়া বাইরে সীমা ওদিকে গিয়া জঙ্গল খোলাইছি। আমার বোনের বাড়ি এই আটকিয়া 2-3 দিন গেছে, এরকম মানুষের বাড়ি গিয়া বোনের বাড়ি দিচ্ছি। বুঝিলেছে আমার মাঝে আমার পেটে বাচ্চা, ডাক্তারের পরীক্ষা করিয়া রইল বাচ্চা তো 5 মাসের দিচ্ছে। এখন বুঝছেন মানুষ এইগুলা তো জানে, পাঞ্জাবি গুলো এগো বৈধ, এই চিন্তা করে 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 মেয়েটার মাথাটা একটু 2 বছর পর আমরা দূর থাকছি।
আমার মা জয়গুনা বিরঙ্গনা মুক্তিযোদ্ধা, উনি জীবনে কোনো সরকার, কোনো মেম্বার চেয়ারম্যানের কাছে, কোনো মানুষের কাছে কোনো সহায়তা পাই নাই। আমি সবার কাছে আমি আমার মায়ের
টেকনিকেট আর কি একটা দরখাস্ত আমি সরকারের কাছে দিয়েছি, এখন পর্যন্ত এই দরখাস্তটা আমার মঞ্জুর হয়েছে কিনা আমি জানি না।
ঠিক আছে। Zulekha Khatun of Mymensingh lives in a village with her son. She has sweet memories of her childhood and the games they played with dolls and make-do utensils, imitating the সংসার of grown-ups. Then came 71, and her world was turned upside down. Captured while trying to flee, she was with others taken to a bunker. Meanwhile, her husband had fled to India, but she found him on reaching the camp. Since his passing, she and her son barely eke out a living on land that they do not own. In spite of the fact that other villagers have testified that she was a Birangona, she cannot get enlisted because the date of birth in her NID card does not tally with her real age. Unable to read herself, she had sought the help of others who did not enter the data correctly. According to the card, she was only 8 years old in 1971. Therefore, she could not be a Birangona. We will hear her now. Zulekha Khatun passed away on August 3rd, 2022 in Ganushastro Hospital. The reason for her death was stated as complications due to chronic malnutrition, a euphemism for hunger. Yes, next.
মাটিতে পুতুল বানায় আমরা খেলাধুলা করছি। এই যে কলা গাছের ফুল আছে না, ওইটাতে একজন চামচ বানাইতাম, বানায় যে বাইরে বাইরে দিতাম। কেউ নদীর কিনারে গিয়ে পলাইছি, কেউ গাছের তলে গিয়ে পলাইছি ভয়ে। গুলি হেরা তো করতেই আছে, গুলির তলে দিয়ে আমরা দৌড় দিচ্ছি। পলাই জীবন গাছের ধরা পড়ি। পরে তো তারা ক্যাম্পে নিয়ে গেল, দুই দিন রাত্রি আমরা একজনের পর একজন, একজনের পর একজন, একজনের পর একজন। পরে তো অজ্ঞান হয়েছি। পরে তো ব্যাংকারের ভিতরে না ঢুকাইলো। 5 দিন পরে আমরা আরেকজন গ্রুপে আমরা পাবলিকই সুপারিশ করে 71 সংগ্রামের বেলাতে কেউ বড় বাস নাই, কেউ বড় কাপড় নাই, কেউ বড় বিছনাপত্র নাই, এমনি রয়েছি দিনে রাইতে হাসি। 5 দিন বান্ধে 6 দিন বান্ধে আসছি, এখন করে 6 দিনে গিয়া পরে গিয়ে উঠছি ভারত। এরপরে তো ওই যে 9 মাস গেলাম ভারতে। কেন্দ্রের স্বাধীন হলো, পরে জায়গা পানি বান্ধে এই যে বসবাস করতেছি থাকতেছি। আইডিতে মনে করেন আমার বয়স ছিল 71, মনে করেন 18, 19, এর মধ্যে বয়স দেখেছে আমার 8। আমার আইডি কার্ড আমি করছি না, তো অন্য মানুষের করে আমার হাতে গেছে।
Next. She had a quiet burial with a flag covering her body that had been managed by Nari Pakho. Slide. Video ta shesh. No.
আমার আম্মা মৃত্যু সজ্জায় হাসপাতালে ভর্তি করা আছে। তো দেশের মানুষের কাছে, সরকারের কাছে আবেদন যে আমার আম্মা মৃত্যুর আগে এই স্বীকৃতিটুকু পায়। ইজ্জত চলে গেলে আর কোনো কিছু থাকে না, ইজ্জত কিনতে পাওয়া যায়। আমার আম্মা সেইটুকু দেওয়া দেশের জন্য অনেক কিছু করছে, তার বিনিময়ে আমরা কোনো কিছু পাই নাই।
Next. This is her son. And this is the farewell, the last farewell that she got, with her body draped in a flag that was brought there by Nari Pakho. The issue of Birangona Muktijoddha remains contentious. Should Birangonas be known as Birangonas or Muktijoddhas or both? Except for the gender difference, both words mean the same thing. Therefore, Birangona Muktijoddha is inherently a redundant phrase. Also, in the context of Bangladesh, the roles of Birangona and Muktijoddha were clearly differentiated, because there are women freedom fighters who were not Birangonas in the Bangladesh sense, but are Birangonas as far as the rest of the Bengali-speaking world is concerned. We will wait for the day when Birangonas will claim their right to be recognized as women who endured suffering inflicted by an occupied army. They would not need Muktijoddha tagged onto their titles to get their entitlements. With the hope that that day is not far, I will read a few lines that have been adapted from Rabindranath Thakur's Chitrangoda. I am a Birangona, war heroine. Goddess I am not, nor a mere woman. I am Birangona, the war heroine. Thank you. I think I'm done.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
I'm sorry for the glitches. I'm very sorry for the video glitches.
No, ma'am, that is quite okay. And thank you for taking us back to the horrors, actually, to the terrible years of the early 1970s, especially for women in our part of the country. So, ma'am, at the end of this very interesting and thought-provoking lecture, I'll see if there are any questions or comments to which I can draw your attention to. Is it okay, ma'am?
Yes, yes, of course.
Ma'am, there aren't too many questions. There's a comment. I would like to draw your attention to it.
Yes.
Anjan Shah says that it is clear that a girl's chastity is her most important possession still, no matter what she did.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that the she herself perceives it that way. That is what is very sad. Because she has not known any other. That's the way she's been referred to, that she must guard this. This is her most, the most valuable thing that she has. Her chastity, her...
So,
in many, sometimes they use womanhood. I've given up my womanhood, which I don't know my naritto. But I think that it's just not a womanhood, but it means the same thing. That she has been raped, that she's lost her virginity or chastity or purity. So because I think it's very difficult to come to terms with rape in our part of the country. You try to sort of glide over it and call it by everything else, by euphemisms, and not come to terms with the real word. And this is very problematic. And rape, all this, I suppose, is, it is sort of enhanced because rape, this was, outside the marriage was sacrilegious. And it's by and large not recognized by society at all that there can be sexual activity outside of marriage. Anything else?
Are there any other questions? You can put them in the chat box for ma'am. Ma'am, while we wait for questions, if they come, I'll just tell you that I was also regarding this issue of rape thinking in legal parlance in our country also. There's a difficulty about rape victim and rape survivor. Like nowadays, the word victim is not used anymore.
No,
like
survivor
rather than being a victim.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Any more questions? Like, can we have them?
There are questions. Could you please check the chat box?
Yes.
Sujita?
Yes.
There are questions.
No.
Okay, that's fine.
No, there are questions, I think.
Okay. There's one from, ma'am, there's a comment from Dr. Meenakshi Kulkarni. Like, in spite of the trauma they faced, they still stood strong and eventually emerged the women whom we honor now. And there are some comments like we salute the Biranganas and things like that. But questions, I can't find any more.
But we have not honored all of them, you know. Some of them are in, and as it is because of the stigma associated with rape, or you know, there are very few. There've been thousands, and very few have come up, you know, to really claim. I mean, it's the people who are really in dire need of monetary help, because the allowance that is being given by the government is a paltry 20,000 takas. But to them, that is a lot. And now they want to be recognized as Birangonas because they can have access to that money. Previously, they just wanted to be, you know, just melt with the crowd.
Ma'am, a question has come just now.
Yes,
It is from Nobonita Mitro. It is,
Yes.
What is the name of Firdausi Priyadarshini's autobiography?
Oh, it's called, I have it just a minute. Nindito Noroke.
Okay, ma'am.
Nindito Noroke.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. Are there any more questions? I'll just take a look now. Your session. No. So, Pornadi, like, would you like to ask something there? Or say something, Pornadi?
No, not really, but I think this has been a very, very enlightening session for us.
Yeah.
And about the Birangonas, we knew so little. That is what kind of it comes as a revelation to us here in India. So thank you, ma'am, very much for that.
You're most welcome. I'm sorry
enlightening.
for all the technical glitches.
No,
but
no,
I
no
tried to
problem.
do too much.
No problem, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much for joining
you
us
very-
today.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. 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 Thank you very much. Is Shuli there? Shuli Sarkar? No.
No, ma'am.
She's
Right now,
not here.
not here.
Actually, yes, she has a little family emergency, so she had to leave.
Okay. That's okay. That's okay. So I'll say goodbye now.
There's another question. Could you just take that, please?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Okay. There's a question from Dr. Meenakshi Kulkarni. Can you please suggest some more books we can work on for the war heroines?
Yes.
Books.
First thing that you should read is, I think, Ami Birangona Bolchi by Nilima Ibrahim.
Ma'am, by whom? Just repeat it once more.
Nilima Ibrahim.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Nilima Ibrahim.
Ma'am, any other books?
There is, of course, Mukti Juddhe Nari, which is by Afsan Chaudhary. And Nayanika Mukherjee's The Spectral Wound. And also another book by Yasmin Saikia. I forget the name of the book. By Yasmin Saikia. It's on Birangonas.
Okay.
And we have a
Please.
collection. Yes.
Yasmin, can you please
Yasmin
repeat?
Saikia. Yasmin, SAYASMEN, Saikia, SAIKIA, Saikia. And Nayanika Banerjee, The Spectral Wound.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That was really mind-blowing, the lecture. I still have goosebumps, ma'am.
Ma'am, what is the name of Yasmin Saikia's book?
I don't remember the name of the book.
Oh, okay. I'll find it out.
I'm sure you
I'll
can
find
Google
it out.
out. Yes.
Okay, ma'am, I will find it out. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your patient hearing
Thank you,
in
ma'am.
spite of all those glitches.
Thank you.
So I'll say goodbye now.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope you.
You're most welcome. You're most welcome. You're most welcome. Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.